Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Effective Resume Thursday. We're very glad you're with us. It's August 5th, 2021. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments that you put in the Zoom chat window do not appear in the Zoom recording. For those people who, if you have any questions throughout the presentation as our speaker takes a break, please just put your questions right into the chat box on Zoom. And for those watching on Facebook right now, please just enter your questions into the comment field. I'm monitoring that feed and I'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area called careerdfw.org, a website to try to help everybody who was unemployed by putting everything you need to know in one place for your job search. In 2012, I launched careerusa.org to help people outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s. They've met every week, and I'll tell you about our upcoming programming tomorrow at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the Practice Interview team. If you'd like to get more information on practicing your interview skills, please just reach out to me and I'll be glad to get you details. It's a great way to practice your interview skills. People spend lots and lots of time on their resume, but when you ask how much time have you practiced interviewing, they don't say a whole lot of time. So it's just as important. Your resume is a hook to get that phone call, but then once you get that phone call, what are you doing to practice your interview skills? Where our speaker today is Andi Cook. She's a life coach, career coach, resume expert, a crown straightener. I love the last term, crown straightener. So today she's going to talk about selecting resume language. So Andi, thank you very much for being with us. Let me make you co-host here so you can share, and it's all yours.
Thanks so much, Jeff. It's always great to be here with your team and your group, and thanks for all you do for our network and making resources available to job seekers across the U.S., not just here in DFW, but all of the work you do. You are on Zoom, I think even more than I am. So thank you for all you do. Let me go ahead and share my screen here and we'll get started with writing resume language. All right. So when you're selecting resume language, I think it's important we're going to go with the Stephen Covey principle here of beginning with the end in mind, determining what you want your resume message to be. There's a lot of, I think, misconceptions and misunderstandings about the role that the ATS the applicant tracking system plays in recruiting. For the most part, the ATS, it does rank resumes. It does scan resumes for keywords and how those match the resume to the job description. So there is a lot of work that the ATS can do depending on how the company using it has it configured and whether or not it can automatically reject resumes, which there are ways to configure it. I've actually gone into the manuals for like Oracle and looked at how do they configure that. So there are ways for them to do that, but a lot of companies don't use some of those technologies. And it really is, once you get your resume into the hands of a recruiter or somebody screening that resume, the message that you send across. I think for all of my clients, one of the first things that I ask them to do is talk to me about the problems that they solve. What business problems is it that you can solve for a company? That's going to become the messaging that we put in your resume. So when you think about what is it that you bring to the table, is it streamlining processes? Is it influencing cross-functional collaboration? And we're going to talk about some of these phrases that you can really tailor that resume to send a message about who you are and what you do just by selecting really powerful language. When you're trying to match the words that you're using in the resume to a job description, think about the nouns the systems you use, the industries you were in, the things that, you know, not the verbs, but the systems you worked with, the actual noun part of your job. That's what we search for. Job titles, industries, things like that. Very rarely do we have a verb search. And if we do, it's going to be something very specific like migrating or migration. It's going to be something along those lines. And most of the time, a recruiter will have what we call a Boolean search. So it's going to pull like migrating and migration, or you know, we can really drill down on that. So I want you to really focus on telling your story through the verbs and selecting powerful verbs that can either be really supportive, showcase you as a driver. Particularly if you're somebody who is more experienced taking a step back, you would want to select more supportive language. And if you are looking to take a step up, you want to really showcase your ability to lead and drive and move. So we're going to talk about some of that and really go through some examples of how you can change up the wording where it's not redundant or it doesn't look like every other resume on a desk. Okay. Our goal is identify the problem you solve, the problems you solve for companies. So I always refer to this as the 5 business problems. Establish your brand. Oftentimes this can come from your key character traits. It also can come from your goals. Where is it that you're trying to go in your career? And then the moves you make in your career need to align with that long-term goal. Determine which words best support your brand strategy. Answer the question, how do I stand out among other applicants? And then also answer the question, how do I avoid being considered overqualified? So those are some things that I hope you take away from today. Grant Baldwin, and I've been told he hijacks this, but not controversy. I heard it first from Grant Baldwin. If you try to be everything to everyone, you can really be nothing to anyone. Don't try to tell everything you've done in the history of forever on your resume. That's not what this space is for. This is look at it as like marketing collateral or sales collateral, where you're sending a message about how you come in and solve problems, right? If I didn't buy my iPhone because of every single feature that it has. I actually didn't want a list of every feature. I wanted to know, what are the pictures like? Will I lose service? How much storage does it have? How big is the screen? You know, those were what were important to me. I didn't need to know every single functionality and feature of it. Okay. Same thing with your resume. They don't need to know every single thing that you do. They need to know how you solve problems for them. Let's go back to the business basics. Why do we throw away best business practices during our job search? All of those things that you learned along the way still apply. That this is sales. You're selling that you're the solution to their problem. So we're going back to the basics. Don't forget the qualities that made you great in your last role. When I'm writing a resume, one thing I always ask during the intake call is, what is the one thing you want people to take away from when they read your resume? And I think you have to know that. Is it that you want them to see you as a subject matter expert, an influential leader, a servant leader? What is it that you're branding out yourself as that you want them to take away? And everything we write has to kind of support that, okay? Your business basics teach us to find something that works and stick with it, right? So I know a lot of people spend hours upon hours tailoring a resume. I'm not a huge fan of this, guys. I do want you to tailor a resume, don't get me wrong, but I want you to be strategic where you're not rewriting it, spending 2 or 3 hours on a resume you may not ever hear back on. So make that tailoring process really quickly. There's a YouTube video that I did on the Maximize Your Job Search channel, and you'll know which one it is because it'll say that I wrote a resume in 3 minutes. It's using, and I showcased this, I think last time we were here, Jeff, on how to use those Microsoft quick parts to tailor that resume quickly. Watch that video. It's really, really powerful tool within Microsoft Word that you can use and get it where you can tailor those resumes in a matter of minutes and showcase your best skills and your best expertise right there at the beginning. Okay. When you're customizing it, there comes a point that customization becomes, I'll be whatever you want me to be. I did a post on LinkedIn today about authenticity, and that if you have to change who you are to go to the places you're trying to go, those may not be the places for you. So be true and authentic to yourself. It's not just telling them what you think that they want to hear. It's not just playing a game. It's really telling them, hey, here is why. Here are the things about me that make this a conversation worth having, right? So be true to yourself, but tell your story and tell them the things that they care about. So every item on that resume needs to pass the why do they care about this test? Not a list of your job description, but why do they care about this in an accomplishment-based format, right? And then keep your messaging intact while customizing the qualities that are most relevant to the company, right? That's not as arbitrary as it sounds. I know if a company is a startup, then my ability to establish processes, to navigate ambiguity, to build teams, develop teams, those are going to come in play because it's a startup. So I can figure that out by simple research. If it's a brand new department, anything that I can uncover about this, maybe there's been a merger and acquisition. So you would want to showcase that you have those skills. What unique situation could they be in? Did you notice that there were a ton of jobs on their website? So if you are looking on the McKesson website, there are tons of jobs. ADT, they're hiring. What is it that's happening behind the scenes that are making these companies grow so much so quickly? Amazon, what can you figure out about what's happening behind the scenes in press releases, on their social media? What, you can really showcase that. If you look on their social media and you see that their whole entire organization has been volunteering at the food bank, that would be a really great indicator that at the bottom, you want a volunteer section and talk about the work that you've done and volunteer, because that's going to align with their core values and their culture. So make sure you're kind of paying attention to those clues that simple research can uncover and tell you exactly how to navigate this, okay? All right, don't change the message, change the delivery. It's not that I want you to reinvent your career. I want you to be true and authentic. If you have to lie to get a job, you'll have to lie to keep a job, and it's a mess and nobody wants to live in that life, right? It becomes a really, really hard to navigate process. I've never seen it work out well where somebody falsified a resume, kind of faked their way through an interview, and within weeks, maybe even days, we get a call saying, hey, this isn't going to work out. This isn't the right person. Okay. I believe the most powerful emotion is disappointment. When what somebody expected is not what happens, it will drive them to make decisions that no other emotion would. So I would rather you be very true and authentic. If you don't have a skill, be honest about that and let them make an informed decision. If the door closes, it would be much better for that door to close during an interview or during a screening process than after you get the job and they realize that you didn't have that skill, right? So don't change your work history, but change how you deliver it. Make sure that you list relevant technologies that you have experience with. If you're applying for an HR role and they want somebody with Workday experience, then you need to list if you have worked with Workday. If you have not worked with Workday, then you can put in parentheses, so let's say you worked with Taleo. In parentheses, you could put similar to Workday. And then your job is, if you get an interview, you have to be able to speak to the similarities and differences between Taleo and Workday. But you can get that keyword in there and showcase that you understand a system by using a similar to phrase, okay? You also want to match their language and terminology. This can include little things like if they're calling them customers, we're calling them customers. If they're calling them clients, we're calling them clients. If they're using acronyms, we're using them. If they're using industry-specific phrasing, let's make sure that we're matching them on their cultural branding and their industry phrasing, their terminology. We want to use that same terminology, and that's a quick fix, okay? You can hit Control F on your resume and do a replacement where you can change customer to client. Okay, you can make those quick edits and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. In an HR world, usually when we refer to clients, they're external, but now companies use them interchangeably, right? So where we have internal customers and external customers instead of it being customer versus client. So make sure you're matching their terminology, and you can find that in the job description or sometimes on their website. In your accomplishments, select accomplishments that are most relevant to the role at a company. If you reworked an entire filing system in 1984 and it was on paper, and this is an all digital company and filing has absolutely nothing to do with your job, that's not what I want you to spend the real estate on your resume showcasing. I want you to save that real estate for recent accomplishments, that if you're leading a team, let's talk about how you've developed team members to achieve growth and earn promotions. Let's talk about how you've led teams of 25 direct reports and through coaching and mentoring practices, and how you improved efficiency and standardized processes. Make sure that we're really showcasing what is most relevant. I know, and I have this argument probably more than any other argument when I'm writing resumes, and I call it my hostage negotiations. But this is where a lot of people hang on to something that they did way back at the beginning of their career. So they want this 5-page resume because they did something amazing in 1993 and they really want it on there. But here's the truth, and hard truth even. Companies don't want to see it. And it's not about what we want to tell, but about what they want to hear. What I like to do, if you have this amazing accomplishment back in more than 10 years ago, use that at the top part of your resume in that core competency section where I listed core competencies and achievements. You can showcase it there without saying where you did it or when you did it. So it puts it on the table to discuss, but you don't have to label it as 20 years old or 15 years old. And it makes it seem less like glory days. As a football mom, I saw all these dads who were out reliving their football career or failed football career out through their sons, or cheer moms who were reliving their cheer days through their daughters. And it was torment. Like, you have these overbearing parents screaming things at sometimes obscenities at the field, yelling at refs, yelling at coaches, and it for what? For a little league game, right? We can come across that way in our resume where we're like reliving our glory days, that we had this amazing start to our career, but then we like stalled out. And so that's what it looks like when we have 15 years, had these great accomplishments, but now it's just these mundane tasks. And it happens either when our jobs outgrow us, we didn't change with our industry, or when we just have kind of slowed down in our career. Something is there where our past is more exciting than our present. That can be a red flag. And as a hiring manager, that would terrify me. Okay. So I want to make sure that we're saying relevant right now accomplishments. And again, if something amazing happened, it's not that you're not supposed to be proud of it. It's just that's not the biggest selling point for why you're going to get this position. If somebody's selling you an iPhone and they go back to the original flip phones, and I know and they're like, but it was amazing and it was like leading edge technology, and you're still not buying a Nokia right now, right? That's not what's happening. And so when you're going back or to a BlackBerry because it was the first technology and it was amazing, that's not how we use it now. So go back to what is your selling point? What makes you relevant right now? What makes you compete with other people who are in the industry right now? And it's not always your history, but what you've done in the last 10 years that are most important to that. When you're selecting accomplishments, make sure that you are listing relevant, applicable accomplishments. Don't relive your glory days. We just talked about that. And it's not about everything you've ever done in the history of forever that's great and impressive. It's about what you've done that applies to the company. Okay. All right. When you're leveraging technology, have a master resume that lists all of your accomplishments in history. This is probably my favorite organization strategy for job search. I don't care if it's 25 pages long. Nobody is seeing this resume. I want you to list every possible accomplishment, every technology, everything you've ever done, and have it where you can just quickly copy and paste that over. And it needs dates, it needs addresses and phone numbers, everything you could need in your search included on this resume. Again, you're not sending it. Make sure that you're ready for those applicants and you're not having to go back and find this information over and over. It's right here. So take the time to just really brainstorm what you can include on a resume and have this master resume. It will speed up the process. I like Microsoft Quick Parts and auto text, like I mentioned earlier, to quickly customize that. But again, having that master resume is really, really vital. And then when you send a resume to a company, save the name. So I might have Karen.Evans Microsoft resume, right? Or Jeff.Morris, McKesson resume, whatever. But then you're saving it so that you can go back and quickly find it. So have a good naming convention that you can access that. And side note, this is not about resumes, but also save your job descriptions. Because I have a client right now prepping for an interview that they applied for back in March. They have no access to this job. It's long since been taken down off of the World Wide Web. And now they're kind of shooting in the dark because they don't remember this position that they applied for months ago. If you'll go ahead and save that either in a Word doc, use your same naming convention so that you can go back and access that information. Okay. Again, going back to what business problems you solve, you're going to get tired of me saying this, but this is so important. 86% of the time, the person who brings a solution to the problem first will go on to get the sale. This is a sales statistic that applies to our job search. So be solutions driven and really talk about how you solve problems. And the way you talk about how you solve problems is speaking in accomplishments. So using phrases like which resulted in, which increased, that decreased. You're using quantifiable results and actionable results, even if you don't have a numeric value, which is better if you do. Having numeric values sends the message that you really know your business and how it impacts the entire organization, but sometimes we don't have access to that for various reasons. Still list the results, even if you don't have the quantifiable number, but if at all humanly possible, get that quantifiable number, okay? Be solutions driven and focus on those 5 business problems. I have people go through an exercise where you list out 5 business problems that you solve. And for each one of those, come up with 2-star stories. This will help you in your interview. It'll help you in your resume. And for each of these star stories, now you turn that into an accomplishment. And you also think about how can that be asked as an interview question, right? I often teach that use your job description as your interview questions and your resume is the answer to those direct questions, okay? So if it's on the resume, or on the job description and you're like, what is your experience with process improvement? Then when I go to your resume, that should answer the question about your experience with process improvement. All right, what do you really do? Okay, this is where we have those really kind of quantifiable or powerful results or how you solve problems. So streamlining workflow, improving processes, increasing sales, driving profitability, enhancing productivity, coaching, mentoring, developing leading teams, building cross-functional collaboration. These are all business problems we solve, guys. Engaging employees, creating a shared vision, increasing client success, enhancing customer experiences, developing technology solutions to complex business problems, transforming underperforming teams or accounts, aligning operations with regulatory compliance standards, managing projects and programs to deliver in scope, on time, and under budget results, delivering solutions with a focus on service excellence, ensuring the integrity of company data, protecting customer, client, or patient information, conducting and managing audits, driving efficiency, and saving money, right? These are, it's obviously not a comprehensive list, but these are some great ways to kind of brainstorm what problems you solve. And if you can pick 5 of those out that you can really build a brand around, that will make a difference in your job search through and through. One thing I really love after working on a resume with somebody, oftentimes they feel very prepared for interviews because now they've kind of gone through their work history. So take the time to go through your work history. I can't tell you how many times I get a resume and somebody's like, I haven't even looked at it in 15 years, right? If you don't know your resume backwards and forwards, you can't possibly speak to it. And as a hiring manager, if I ask you a question about something on your resume and you can't speak to it, I instantly feel like you're being dishonest with me, right? It's on here. I want you to be the expert on your job history. The next thing is really looking at your personality type. And personality types come into play in every aspect, whether it's resume writing or interviewing. So you really need to kind of figure this out. I love Myers-Briggs. For those of you who follow that, I'm an ENFJ. And so if you know your letters, you can kind of figure out what are your strengths and weaknesses. But if you are a driver, you are more factually based extrovert. You're decisive and goal-driven, kind of that get it done type A personality. You have to be cautious that it's not perceived as arrogant or bossy. So you want to kind of toe that line. On the fact-based introverts, our pros and cons people, our list. This is where you have to be really cautious not to just list everything and just do a job description, but really get into the story part. Our analytical people ask a lot of questions, but they can get stuck in the paralysis of analysis or over communicating. So make sure that you don't get too granular on that resume. An example I could give you is I worked with somebody who was coming out of the oil and gas industry that did not want to work in oil and gas. One thing we really had to dive deep into and kind of struggled through a little bit, but ended up with great results, was getting rid of the oil and gas specific language. And when you've been part of an industry for a long time, you kind of speak that language, especially if you've been in the military for 20 years, you speak in acronyms. It's just ingrained in who you are. So getting a resume that is broader, that sends a message that what I did relates to what you're asking me to do is really important. Don't get stuck into the granular details of the language in your company. Broaden that out. So I might not say a financial software. I might just broaden it out to a software solution. Make sense? So broaden it out a little bit. I might not say medical patient, that I worked at a doctor's office. I might broaden that out, or I might not say I work with patients. If I'm trying to get out of the medical industry, I might call them customers. So this is where you broaden out that language, because if we don't relate where we've been to where we're going, then oftentimes the hiring manager has a challenge to overcome in relating your experience to the job that they're asking you to do. So make sure you're painting that picture for them. Expressive people are your relationship-driven extroverts. They're storytellers. They often overcommit themselves. That's me. We're kind of yes people, visionaries. We're passion-driven, but we also have a tendency to miss deadlines because we overcommit ourselves. So what I often do on that is if I'm writing my own resume, I'm going to make sure that I speak to my ability to meet deadlines, because I want people to have that message from the beginning that that is a challenge that I've overcome in my life. Okay. If you're amiable, you're more of a relationship driven introvert. Sometimes our amiable people can be calm. Well, they're usually calm and laid back, but they can have a flat effect. So oftentimes our super laid back people can come across even disengaged or uninterested. So you have to make sure that everything is not just very dry, because it's hard to get that deep excitement, but they often want harmony and avoid conflict, and want to make sure that if you have learned to be amiable and thrive in fast-paced environments, we want to speak to that because, again, we're sending a message. The resume is not just about a piece of paper to get an interview, but starting a conversation. So some examples of how this could play out and wording for your specific brand. Let's look at led and managed. These are probably the two most overused words on any resume, Jeff. I'm sure you've seen led and managed over. And sometimes I get a resume that every single bullet point starts with the word managed, or they alternate led and managed. And those of us who think in patterns, that will freak us out, just saying. So if you're a driver, you might use words like controlled, executed, headed, oversaw, produced, spearheaded, directed, and drove. Remember, on your verbs, if you're actively working in a job, that's present tense language. You're actively doing it. So it would be controls, executes. But if it's a job you have already left, even if you left it yesterday, that is past tense language, okay? So that's going to be your dividing line. If you're talking about an accomplishment, past tense language, okay? So it's something that has already happened. Make sure that you're matching your tenses. If you have a strand of bullet points, they all need to be conjugated the same way. So they all need to have the same verb tense. If you're amiable, you're going to use words like coordinated, organized, and planned. This is really important, guys. Amiable is going to be more supportive language. So if you are a leader taking a step back, and I have seen this more in the last 2 years than ever in my history, where just a lot of people who were previously executives are not looking to join a company as an executive in this final chapter of their career, particularly those who have worked 25 and 30 years. So they want to take a step back. They still feel they have a lot to offer the workforce and want to tell that story. The best way to do that is use supportive language. So I'm not going to really focus on management. I'm going to talk about supporting goals. Your job then is to send the message that you support their vision, not have one of your own, okay? So make sure, like if I'm sending a message that I'm applying for an individual contributor role and I've been the VP of operations, then I'm not going to start it with, I'm a visionary leader. Instantly, they're like, well, actually, I'm the visionary leader here and I don't really need you to do that too, right? But if you're applying for a leadership role, you want to bring that in. So really know how to tailor the message for what you're applying for. Amiable, coordinated, organized, and planned. If you're expressive, our storytellers, we're going to use words like orchestrated, championed, implemented, transformed. For me, those feel great. For people who are very analytical, they're like, I would never say that. Do not put orchestrated on my resume. Okay. That is totally understandable. It needs to match how you're going to interview. So one thing that I think happens in job search when somebody has their resume professionally written, for me, good resume writing is ghost writing. It needs to sound like a polished version of your resume, not like my resume. And when there's a disconnect between what I read on the resume and the person that shows up in the interview, it creates distrust. So you want to make sure that it's cohesive, that you're using words you would actually say in real life. And if you would never say, that you transformed an underperforming account, then make sure that you don't have that on your resume. Analytical people may come in and say they chaired something, they operated, they programmed. It's going to be more process driven. They may say something like documented or spearheaded, something like that. There's going to be some overlap. People who are expressive or amiable may find that some of the words in driver really meet the need. So just make sure that you're doing that and that it feels authentic for you. Developed and coordinated would be another set of words that we see a lot. If you're a driver, you might use built, initiated, launched, pioneered, and steered. Pioneered's another one of those that's super controversial. If you are 20 years into your career and don't want to seem like a pioneer in your industry, don't use words like pioneer. So again, match it to your branding. If you want to be seen as somebody who was just a founding father of your trade, then use words like that, okay? Founded, established, incorporated, facilitated would come in for our amiable people. Notice we're not using disruptive language for amiables. If you want to send the message that I'm a team player, I want everybody to get along, I really embrace company culture, then those amiable words would be where I would really steer you. Expressive would be designed, envisioned, chartered, introduced. Analytical would be devised, engineered, formalized, and formulated. So very calculated type of language for analytical. You can almost never go wrong with expressive language because it paints a picture. So when in doubt, I tend to lean more expressive than others. I think this one's our final example. Let's talk about change. Change can be a controversial topic. So this is where it's really important to understand your audience and the role. If you are in a leadership role, look for these type of verbs in the job description to kind of steer you on what type of leader they're looking for. Some people want, in fact, I've been hired into roles where they wanted a bulldog. They wanted a chain, like a bulldozer coming in and just wipe everything clean and start over. That's a very different role than when I was hired at a role that was a little bit more suited for my personality, because they wanted somebody to champion a team and really develop, leaders among the team. So I would use my expressive language. So understanding what they're looking for, you're going to find those little clues in the job description. Drivers, they centralized, merged, overhauled, replaced, restructured, revamped, and strengthened. Think about this. If you have a hiring authority that is expressive or amiable, and you use words like overhauled or, really, you call yourself a change agent, that can come across in a negative light. So just be aware of how they could take it too. You might use words like clarified, integrated, refined, refocused, or simplified, or influenced, redesigned, remodeled, rehabilitated, revitalized, and transformed. If you're analytical, that could be more, again, converted, modified, reorganized, standardized, updated, or upgraded. Okay. I always start my bullet point with the verb, almost always, like 99% of the time. I want to start with what I did so that in the first 3 to 4 words, if you never read that second half of that bullet point, you would still know exactly what I did. Your brand symmetry is one branding message across all platforms. So the same brand that you have on your resume needs to be the same brand that is on your LinkedIn and the same brand in your interview. And remember, it creates trust. Symmetry being one consistent person, it creates trust. And how you're going to achieve that is being authentic. Okay, being thoughtful in the words you say. There's a phrase we use at my house with my son and with my family about verbal precision. When you say something, make sure it's verbally precise. And that includes when you're describing who you are, what you do, what you've accomplished. Make sure that you're doing it with integrity and with authenticity. Words that I would avoid. So these are words that have literally no value on a resume. Numerous, multiple, and several are not measurable numbers, guys. I see this all the time. Or various. Various may be the one that makes my eye twitch. And et cetera, et cetera. Those don't tell me anything. Responsible for or tasked with describes a responsibility, not an action, right? That's not an accomplishment. So you will not see, the only time you'll see me use the word with responsibility for is at the very top. I sometimes will write a brief kind of synopsis of the position. You're talking 1 or 2 lines, and I might say served as the operations manager with responsibility for transforming, something like that. That's not an accomplishment. But underneath that in the bullet points, I'm going to then talk about the accomplishments that I've already said what you were responsible for now or tasked with. Now let's talk accomplishments. Okay. Job descriptions, not accomplishments. And I cannot tell you how many times I get a resume that is literally cut and pasted from their job description. And whether it was your past job description or a job description you're applying for, it is never the right option to cut and paste, ever. Like nothing good ever happens from reply all. Nothing good on a resume can happen from copying and paste it from another source. You can copy and paste it from your master resume, but not from another source. It's never going to go well. Etc., other, and similar, those are vague terms. They don't tell us anything. So I see this a lot where they're like, etc., or and other systems, or other duties as assigned, doesn't tell me anything. References available upon request. Guys, this really, I think, happened way years ago, back in a time where we went on to a like a hiring event or a job fair, and they put your resume in a box and you had to get it on one page because they might lose them. That's not the case anymore. And so you're going to give a reference if they ask you for one. This is just assumed. Don't take up real estate on your resume to put that. Also, I don't have this on here, but let me just caveat this. I personally feel really awkward when I'm reading a resume and it's like professional, perfect. And then at the end, it's like, and I like hiking. For me, it feels out of place. Some people feel like it's personal, but it's like professional, personal. And so I always just kind of do a double take it, like, did they just say that? Because it feels out of place. So make sure you have this cohesive brand. I personally don't put hobbies. I think you can put volunteer experience. I think you can kind of tell that story. You can say you're a member of a running club or whatever, but just to put your like hobbies and interests down at the bottom, for me, it doesn't work. My golden rules: be honest, be authentic, be relevant, be yourself. Okay. I can't summarize it better than that. I could have saved just like an hour of time just by showing you this slide, but this is really what it boils down to. Be honest, be authentic, be relevant, be yourself. Okay. Jeff, I want to open it up for, a little bit on questions. If anybody wants to talk about specific resume language or something that they struggle with telling that story, I want to open it up for that.
Right. So I did put in the chat window the action verb cheat sheet that you put, so that if you want, you can grab that action sheet. I'm also going to post a couple other documents of a sample resume, a sample bio. So you can download any of those. And if you have issues, I'll have an email address here in a little bit that you can email me, and I will send you all those documents. So if you have a question, please unmute your mic and let's ask Andi. Question?
Y'all are quiet.
He's really quiet today. All right. Nobody has a question.
All right, hang on just a sec. Let me see what this question is.
Oh, here, Bonnie just asked in the chat window. Yeah. I heard that once you say, if you're not getting interviews, it's your resume. If you're not getting interviews, it's if you're getting interviews but not getting job offers, it's because of your interviewing skills.
Yeah, so what I tell people on this is, let's troubleshoot backwards from goal. This is a behavior strategy I learned when I was on the behavior teams in schools. And so we're working backwards from goal. So our goal is job offer. If we look at that in logical steps, we've got, an application, an interview, job offer. That should be this logical sequence. A resume, when written well and the application done well, should lead to an interview. Same thing with networking, all of that. That all comes in. Follow-ups, great. So application should lead to an interview. Interview should lead to more interviews, which should lead to job offers. So when you look at where is it falling through the cracks? If you're not getting any interviews, go to the next, or step back. That's your resume. So something in that application process is not getting through the cracks. You may need to have somebody else look at your resume. You may need to do some DIY, something that would really indicate that you, or work on that resume to tweak it. If you're getting to first round interviews, but not second, then it's really probably telling that career story and indicating that you have expertise. So think about screening questions, being able to speak to your resume, personality types, being able to articulate passion, all of that comes in that first round. If you're making it to the final three every time, but not getting an offer. It may just be your closing skills. So kind of troubleshoot it backwards from goal to identify where you may need to really focus your efforts. And then as you can kind of minimize that, but it's really looking at your application and interview activity from a behavior point of view.
And I can add to that. I remember I've been a member of the practice interview team for many years now. I remember having this one candidate, and we get to see a resume and a job description before the interview. And I'm looking at these two documents going, this is a perfect match. This candidate should get the job. It shouldn't be an issue. But when she came in for the interview, totally blew it. It was like, it was not good. We gave her feedback. She went and rehearsed. She came back 4 weeks later. She aced it. And within a couple of weeks, she got a job. So I think that old adage is your resume gets you the phone call. It's like a fishing hook. It gets them to call you. But then if they're not following up with the phone calls, it's because your interviewing skills need to be worked on.
Absolutely. Who are you without backspace? Essentially. When you're speaking to it, you don't have the luxury of rewriting it and backspacing. When you are writing it, we can fine tune it. And some of that just comes from really, once you get it on paper in your resume and you think, man, I really, really feel good about this. Don't ignore that. Now it's time to really learn that resume backwards and forwards.
Right. Olga asked, hi, Andy, I'm doing pro bono work. I was told to remove the words pro bono from pro bono consultant. What is your opinion?
Absolutely. I definitely wouldn't put pro bono on there. I think you're getting into a point, honestly, that's not their business. How much you got paid for that gig or whether or not you got paid for it, the work doesn't change. So I would focus on the work, not the compensation. If it was volunteer, I think that's different. But if you're doing it truly pro bono, I personally think that just list it as professional experience.
Okay. Here we go. Need advice on how to generalize a resume. I've been in the travel industry for 20 plus years, an expert in agile software development. However, all my accomplishments are travel related. For example, automating frequent flyer award program for AA.com. How do I generalize this accomplishment?
Absolutely, Jiminy. Let's look at this. It's not a frequent flyer awards program. It's a customer rewards program, right? Take out the frequent flyer part. It's not American Airlines accomplishment. It's your accomplishment. If you did it at American Airlines, you can do this at McKesson or Microsoft, or you can always tell what positions I've been coaching people on because those companies become my examples. But you know what I'm saying? Like if you did American Airlines, you can do it anywhere. You don't have to go to another airline or a travel company to do the same thing. So broaden that out to a customer rewards program. Every major retailer is going to have these. CVS, there's a company called Reward Style up in the Oak Lawn area in Dallas that actually builds rewards programs for major retailers. There's a lot of companies where you can go and utilize these agile software development language to really influence. I'm guessing you're either an agile coach or a project manager or something like that. What I would say is focus on the SDLC type of language, the software development lifecycle. Scrum Master, absolutely. So focus on that language and don't make it so specific to the fact that it was at American Airlines, but focus on really what you accomplished.
Yeah, she says she's a Scrum Master.
Got it. Right. Got it. And that's a really, really marketable skill.
On Facebook, Katie asked, Andy, are you available to provide feedback on a resume? Thanks for the presentation. Very helpful information. What's your business? What do you do every day?
Absolutely. I never tell this. I forget that like it's new people. So my name is Andi and I have a company called Maximize Your Job Search, also known as the Crown Straightener. There's a funny story behind that. We'll tell another time, but I do resume writing, LinkedIn profile setup, and a lot of career coaching, whether that's interview or job search strategy, how to find jobs. We just hit our 215th landing since April of 2020. So it's been a great year and a few months in business and love what I do. absolutely available to look at a resume. If it's just that you want me to look at it, send it to me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me, is just reach out to me on that profile right there, and we can go. You'll know it's me because of the crown. But just reach out to me. I'm absolutely happy to help.
And if you are going to try to connect with Andi, and you look for that blue connect button, please send that personal note. Tell her that you saw her today on Effective Resume Thursdays. Personally, I don't connect with people when they just hit connect and they don't send me a personal note, because I want to know why we need to connect. Where did we meet at? So, you know,
Are you trying to sell me something?
Excuse me?
I want to know, are you trying to sell me something? Like, that's
Right. So please do that. Well,
hey, Teresa,
you know,
can I answer this one for Teresa?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Teresa, can you give me an example of a time where you have used responsible for, and let me help you rephrase this.
I just unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you asked me that when I didn't have my resume up.
I know.
It's in the context of, so these are IT leadership roles I'm interviewing for. And a lot of times they throw the kitchen sink at, need this, need this, need this, need this. For example, you know, they're not hiring for a project manager, but they want to make sure this leadership role has been responsible for managing complex projects, understands project management concepts, et cetera, et cetera. And so I have used language like responsible for driving the engagement, the projects with my PMO in my organization, et cetera. I don't really bring metrics back into it because it's kind of a general. Does that help?
Yeah. So what I would do on that, if it were me, is I would do something along the lines of collaborated with PMO leaders to deliver projects ranging from X dollars to X dollars, or ranging from 6 month to 1 year deliverables, something like that, that ties a tangible, but I would focus on the actual action, not the responsible for. So it's just taking off that first part and looking at what is your primary verb.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I use it too to kind of dump keywords sometimes to get the applicant tracking score up when I'm blindly going in somewhere and I don't have any network connections.
Yeah, the ATS won't ever match the word responsible. So I would take that one off, and I just think it gets a little bit convoluted and doesn't really tell what you accomplished. So I would start it with that. Just if you take off that responsible for a part of it, start it with the next verb.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Sure. Good. I'm so glad. Olga, follow-up question to remove pro bono on LinkedIn as well. Absolutely. You want your LinkedIn and resume to have the same basic facts.
Great. Well, Andi, thank you very much for your time. Everybody, thank you for being with us today. Next, remember, we're now doing effective resumes on the first and third Thursday of the month. So next, in 2 weeks, Rex Sayat, who's a human resource recruiting staffing manager at Jungle Aviation and Radio Services, will be talking about strategies to beat the ATS system. If you'd like to get the sample resume, the sample keywords that we talked about, any of the information, just send me your email to resume@careerdfw.org. Let me know what you're looking for. Just tell me you're looking for the resume documents from today's session, and I will be glad to reply with all those documents for you. Resume@careerdfw.org. Career DFW and Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week now. This Friday, the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group meeting tomorrow morning at 9:30. We're going to have open forum the first Friday of every month. We talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. So it's sort of a free-for-all. We'll talk about any subjects, anything job related. Just bring your questions with you tomorrow morning. Tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock, there's a group called Women of Wisdom. They'll be meeting. It is by women only. You do need to be invited. If you'd like to get an invitation, please send an email to WOW@careerdfw.org. WOW@careerdfw.org. This is a Zoom meeting only. It will not be on Facebook. Next Tuesday for LinkedIn Tuesdays. Every Tuesday we talk about LinkedIn. LinkedIn from a Recruiter's Eye. Kurt Vondermatter is a retained search consultant. He pays LinkedIn around $20,000 a year for the full-blown recruiting package. And he's going to show us from the back end what he does when he's trying to find you, the job seeker, when he's trying to find candidates. He's going to show that to us. And believe me, it's very interesting if you haven't seen it. Next Wednesday, for interviewing Wednesdays, we'll be on session number 2, where we talk about preparing for specific interviews, limited time interviews, and a short talk about networking when you're interviewing. Next Thursday, the second and fourth Thursdays of the month, we're talking about networking. Sonia Lowry will be with us to talk about a secret weapon for simplifying your job networking efforts. So let me say that again, a secret weapon to simplify your network efforts. The secret recipe, the secret weapon is a marketing plan or a bio. So if you want to find out about it, come join us next Thursday. So this session has been recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page. It'll be on the Career USA YouTube channel in a couple hours. Please check each page. Please follow us on Facebook. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really, really appreciate it. On the YouTube channel, it looks something like this. It is the Career USA YouTube channel. Click on playlists, the best way to use it. And then you'll see all the different lists that have been put together, resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn, etc. And then at the very bottom, don't click on the video, but down where you see that red arrow, click where it says view full playlist. And then up will come a list of all the different titles and topics that we've talked about in that playlist. The newest one should be on top. If not, please click on the little sort button and you'll get the newest one to the very, very top. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops and you'd like to get on the Career USA mailing list, we put out 6 emails a week. The nice thing about it is you will get the topic of the day, the title of the day, and the Zoom link of the day. So that way you can just open the email, click on the Zoom link, and you can join us every day at 1 o'clock or at 9:30 in the morning on Fridays. Just send an email to Career USA, the + subscribe at groups.io, and we'll get you signed up. Please note, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Andi's a volunteer. She volunteered to present to us today. I'm a volunteer. We have no full or part-time employees. What I've done over the last 13 years is strictly been as a volunteer to help you land your next great opportunity. Please consider making a donation when you land your next job. And if you'd like to do something immediately, you can just click on that little, take your phone out and click on that code right there, and it'll take you to the donate page. So thank you very much for joining us today. Have a great week. And Andi, thank you once again. And if anybody needs those documents, just send me something to resume@careerdfw.org. Thank you, Andi.